Hi, my name is Lech from InPay. We are Bitcoin payment processor from Poland.
Hi, my name is Marta. I'm the GM and co-founder of Asimo. We do low-cost money transfers for economic migrants that live anywhere in Europe and can send money anywhere in the world to banks, cash, mobile top-up, mobile wallets, or home delivery. And we can reach 5 billion people with our network.
Hi, I'm Tomasz, entrepreneur and investor.
Okay, so let's start by discussing what a fintech really is. In the UK, we see that purely online banks are being created, and they are regarded as a fintech, while we have them in Poland for like 15 years. So it's like using particular technology, such as mobile, makes a product fintech, or does there have to be something more, such as innovative business model or particular user experience?
Okay, as the token person living in the UK, I'll start. I think we need to remember that a lot of the fintech, martech, regtech, adtech, it's a lot of hype. When we started Asimo in 2012, at some point, I think we saw fintech used for the first time. And we started thinking, oh my God, that sounds really weird. You know, ultimately, we were doing online money transfers. And then this term fintech was coined, and we thought, oh, maybe we start a Wikipedia entry for it. But then we thought, no, nobody's going to use that. We just, carried on with our life and carried on with building the business rather than looking at terms. I worry that all these techs are being slightly overused. I know offline money transfer company that launched a website and started saying that they're a fintech business. To be honest, Western Union now have a website. Does that make them fintech? Probably not. So I think that to a large extent, it should be related to the approach that you have in building your business. Are you using technology to gather customers? Have you just built a website to support and sort of a previously existing business model that had a certain overhead and was to a large extent manual? Or are you building a business where your innovation is in the optimizing the operational side of things? So are you building a business that is going to be self-sufficient? Are you building a business where you're already optimizing for a certain margin and a certain way of doing business, and you know that this can be sustainable and you can carry on working this way? I think that the technology is not about how we acquire customers. The technology should be in how is it that we actually do the whole business. And only if it's sort of, if you're hitting all these categories, are you a tech business and subsequently a fintech business? Now that's of course just my opinion, but what do you think?
I think you said it all perfectly, so nothing to add here from my side.
Okay. I assume that fintech, it's not only just using technology, from my perspective, it's just disruptive innovation. It's not just a bank website that allows you to make a wire transfer. I think about enabling 2 billion people to be able to send money everywhere in the world. So right now there are 2 billion people unbanked that are not allowed to use banking system. And with a mobile phone, they can just install a Bitcoin wallet and send money almost everywhere. So they just don't use a simple banking application. They become a bank on their mobile phone, and especially a Swiss bank account. So I see fintech as a disruptive innovation. I see fintech as a technology that allows us to do smart contracts, a technology that makes payments without third parties like banks. I see fintech as a way of doing things in a decentralized way.
Okay,
Yeah.
just speaking of sending money to people, like one of the things that I'm very excited about in fintech is not just sending money between people, but sending money between machines and writing computer programs that manage money. And that's a very new thing right now happening in Bitcoin, in Ethereum, and in cryptocurrency. And like when many people talk about fintech, they say, oh, it will be the new way to send money to Africa, or we will introduce new way of banks managing APIs or whatever. For me, what's amazing is that right now people are building computer programs that just manage money without any central authority, and that's quite amazing. And if I can pitch this fund that I'm pitching, and I'm very excited about it, like just a month ago, some programmers wrote a software that manages right now like 150 million people dollar fund that is managed like democratically. So there is no owner, there is no single company that owns the pile of money. It's just a computer program that manages it and runs elections and lets people decide what to do with the money. So this kind of innovation, where it's not just people sending money to people, but programs and servers sending money to servers, that's what's very exciting for me. And yeah.
So when we talk about disruptive innovation and making certain processes more efficient, can we do that on the old banking infrastructure? Or like, should we skip it altogether and like build something new?
Just take a look at Deutsche Bank and the latest failure of banking system. So the state of obsoleteness of the banking systems are enormous. This is huge. For example, Deutsche Bank uses financial systems that literally cannot be upgraded. So this is a huge problem. So I don't see how banks can somehow, in an instant, move to a more digital world. I don't see that.
I mean, definitely to your point, there is a certain level, if not a complete level, of technical debt, and just the lack of the attitude that you're building something iteratively and that you can carry on developing products that fit the need of a customer, and we know that those are changing very fast. Also, banks are dealing with a fair bit of regulation. It's probably slowing them down as well, but I think it's going to take a while till a bank is ready to truly engage in innovative projects, unless, and this is what we see them doing, at least in the UK, all the big banks are starting their accelerators. So Lloyds have their accelerator, Barclays have their accelerator, and ultimately what they're doing is they're breeding entrepreneurs and then buying out their idea and trying to roll it out internally. I think also, the banking system was, we're still reliant on the banking system to a large extent. If we're trying to take people away from using their banks, I still have to have a relationship with banks all around the world to be able to run my business. But I think the difference between Asimo or my company and the banks is that we can move much faster, and also the technology is moving much faster than the banking system. So to your point, yes, 2 billion people who don't have a bank account. However, there are already 2.1 billion smartphones internationally, and by 2020 it's expected that there will be 6.1 billion smartphones, and the majority of that growth is going to come from the developing markets, so Asia, Africa, Latin America, and then being able to look at the internet and the mobile phone as a tool to give you access to all these things that previously you couldn't have access to, and most of all, it was extremely expensive. This is the power of technology, because we can literally deliver a massive improvement to a person's life through the use of technology. So for instance, the point that you touched upon, how there's a lot of really sexy technology that's happening in the background, and how this is going to enable, sort of humankind to move very much towards the future in 5, 10, 20 years in the way that we set up financial systems as well. I still think that there are really quick wins that we can do through putting an extra layer on top of banks and using technology to bridge this gap between the banking system and the people who were either previously unbanked or couldn't afford financial services because they were so overpriced.
I'm actually a fan of the banking system, especially in Poland. If I look at what's happening in Poland, I really believe in the banking environment. I can check my account on the mobile. There is Blik that we use. I don't know how many of you used it. It's this 6-digit number, and I can put it into ATM. I can put it online. I can pay for anything just putting in a 6-digit number from my phone. That's quite amazing. I can send wire transfers to anyone in Poland and soon in Europe. And another thing is that very soon there will be APIs that will allow me to integrate with my bank very fast. So I'm actually quite a big fan of banking system in certain extents. And I love banks over there, and I love what Poland is doing, and I hope that the rest of the world will soon follow. Now, yeah. But now, on the other hand, like there are certain things, and I will not repeat myself too much, I promise. But like when it comes to the distributed bank, like management of money, that's where there is nothing on the horizon, even from the banking environment, and that's where it's like that's the point that is missing. As a programmer, as a developer, there won't be any time soon where I can just write anything that will manage any kind of money, like easily at least.
Yeah, on the one side, as you mentioned, Polish banks catched the wave of doing the banking apps properly. That's true. But on the other hand, they are not innovating further. For example, banks in the United States or in other countries are now pressured to innovate because they are lagging in their systems, they are obsolete, and there is a lot of technical debt. And they are the ones that are now leapfrogging to using blockchain technology, to using, for example, R3 systems, starting to experiment with the blockchain. And our banks are not doing that. So there will be another step in this competition when we will be happy with our banking applications in Poland that work great, right, this is true. But we will be leapfrogged in an instant.
I mean, I think that just to sort of add a layer of complexity to this conversation, I think we should start thinking about the definition of what a bank is. What purpose does a bank serve? Is a bank, what is the bank's primary function? Is it storing our money, our savings that we already have? Is it storing our data? To a large extent, I think this is probably an even more important role of a bank. And how can we maybe think that, what is the bank of the future? And can we, for instance, assume a world in which a bank is this sort of underlying layer that has all these different fintechs on top that can actually specialize and deliver services that are tailored to the needs of a particular customer? And yes, we could think that, yes, maybe this bank at some point is going to be intelligent enough to be able to really understand our data and really become customer-centric and be on the customer's side rather than very much on the other. But I think that at least till we get there, and I think it's going to take a while, and I think we're going to see that innovation from the emerging online-only fintech banks rather than from the big incumbents, because they will have to deal with a whole lot of technical debt, with a whole lot of really well-paid CEOs who are really hoping that they're going to get till their retirement and they won't have to do much before. I think we need to think about what is it that we want from a bank. And more I feel that if we focus on what the function of a bank is, we will see that, as far as I'm concerned, it would be even better if there was, and I'm very happy for it to be built in blockchain, but there is a layer of sort of data storage and an institution, a regulated institution that is managing this data and the business's money, and then those businesses that sit on top that can really relate to a customer and provide an experience to the customer and iterate on this experience for the customer based on the feedback that the customer is giving, because they're small enough and agile enough to do so.
Like, speaking of data, that's quite an interesting point that you said. And what we're seeing is right now, for example, banks in Poland recently took over the program 500 Plus and just allowed people to apply for a government program and acted as a gatekeepers for the data of people, and that's quite interesting development. So I can see a future where banks are not just related to money, but also are the managers of identity, managers of data that people have to keep, and just this kind of perhaps even notaries that manage all kinds of transactions where security really matters, and that's also an interesting development.
Speaking about identity, it is a very hard task for a bank to keep proper identities of their clients. So we assume that every bank account is connected to a real person, but that is not true. A lot of bank accounts are fake, belong to fake people, fraudsters and other people. So it's very hard to do identity even for banks. So, and there is another problem. Most banks historically were here to help us to save money. And right now in the world with negative interest rates, it is becoming harder and harder to save money in a bank. So people start to withdraw the cash from the bank and store it in a safe deposit box to escape from negative interest rates. This is ridiculous. And of course, Poland is a rare exception right now because we still have positive interest rates. Our policy, monetary policy of our central bank is rather sane at the moment. But the world is going to the point where all the banks will be pressured with the negative interest rates. So it's hard to see a future of a client of a bank and a bank that earned money from the money and money from the interest rates. So it will be a very tough future, a very hard future for banks to live in a world with negative interest rates.
I absolutely agree, and I think we just have to go back to the point that you actually made initially, which is we live in an increasingly complex, interconnected world, and I think it's great that we can see a lot of fantastic innovation coming from Poland, but I think that ultimately we ourselves, we travel more and more, we live in different places, and we need to see that there are certain places where banks can't reach. The aforementioned 2 billion people, it's actually 2.6 billion adults that don't have access to a bank account. And I think we need to see that there have to be other instruments that will be able to be responsible for all the things that we've mentioned, be it the management of money, be it the management of data, be it the management of identity. And I guess this is why we're having this discussion, because here the opportunity is with, for me, it's to a large extent in the mobile technology, and we look at, and fair enough, I'll relate to the example from my own world, but we look at countries such as Kenya. At the moment, 60% of Kenya's GDP is held in mobile money. Years ago, they came up with a thing called M-Pesa, which allows people to store monetary value on their phone. And this is not a fancy mobile wallet. This is no PayPal. This is literally people using their Nokia's 3210 to store money on their phones, and they can go to a shop and pay with an SMS. And ultimately, and to give you an example, of how massive an impact can have on a country. These guys no longer have to get on a bus and travel for hours to go to the nearest bank. The crime rates have dropped because previously it's a rural country. Previously there would be a lorry going around the villages once a month with envelopes of cash and 3 guys with AK-47s protecting the lorries. They were still being attacked. Everybody knew when payday was. Houses were being attacked. And so this has been alleviated. On top of everything, the disposable income of an average Kenyan person has increased from 5% to 15% just by the fact that M-Pesa was introduced. So I think that the ultimate point is that we need to find ways in which people or institutions that are not banks can extend the traditional role of a bank to people and places where banks won't reach. And if we're thinking about technology as the ultimate enabler and, the beautiful generation that we are that can change the world, this is the big opportunity. It's not just disintermediating an industry for the sakes of it. It's not optimizing margins. It's going these places where the former institutions couldn't reach.
If I may add,
sure.
very briefly, speaking from the cryptocurrency perspective and the globalization, that's what's really amazing about cryptocurrency is that it's global from the day one. And what we can see is sometimes companies doing IPOs, going on a stock exchange that is in cryptocurrency, releasing their own shares for anyone to buy. And it doesn't matter if the person is in Kenya, in the Gaza Strip or wherever, if the person has even $1, but that person thinks that that dollar can be invested in a company that is noted on a blockchain, then that person can put that dollar and earn $2 if the company goes big. And that is quite amazing if you think about it, that in the terms of when it comes to cryptocurrency, any system is global from the day one. There are literally no boundaries. It doesn't matter which country it is. And one thing is this sending money from a person to person. But if we're talking about, trading futures, managing companies, doing IPOs, whatever, all these kind of financial services, if they are on blockchain, they are global, and we can really see that. And that's quite astonishing for me.
Okay, so coming to the end of our discussion, do you see emerging the killer feature of Bitcoin? because like recently the price has increased substantially. So will we see the proliferation of Bitcoin?
1 year ago, I tried to convince institutional investors to take us a little stake in Bitcoin, for example, 1% of their portfolio to invest in Bitcoin. I was very naive to to suggest them to invest in Bitcoin because they can't. They just can't. The regulations are restricting them from right now, today, investing them in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. This is almost impossible. But the irony of this situation is that Bitcoin is the only asset, well, not only asset, but one of the assets that enables non-accredited investors to invest in a startup. In a normal world, if you want to invest in an emerging startup, you have to be an accredited investor. I see Bitcoin as a global startup. Bitcoin is an ecosystem of companies, ecosystem of different people, developers that you may think that they work for free to develop this system, and you can invest in it. And regular people can invest in Bitcoin, but institutional investors can't. So this is a very funny situation, in my opinion.
I mean, ultimately, we're talking about what we're all talking about, and this is in principle a difficult conversation because we're all sitting on sort of different layers of this whole conversation as to what fintech is going to enable. We're talking about democratization of everything, be it access to basic services, be it access to loans, access to saving, access to investment. Technology empowers you with choice, because very often in the past you didn't have a choice. There was one provider that you had to go to, and it empowers you with knowledge. It sort of gives you access to information that you need to have to be able to manage your money better and therefore manage your life better. I mean, ultimately, payments or finance are boring. Nobody really wants to think about payments as such. Innovation in payments, people don't care about that. People don't care about how they're going to pay. People care about how they're going to live their lives. People care whether they can invest. People care whether they can go to the gym, forget their wallet, and still on the way back pick up groceries because they can pay with their phone. This is the bit that is really empowering, and this is the bit that makes our conversation relevant. So the fact that regardless of who you are, be it a poor migrant or an affluent migrant or an investor or a person who has a full-time job but feels that their money is not working hard enough for their money, this is why this whole conversation is so exciting, because there are all these different places that they can go now that allow them to do that through this excellent use of technology. And I think this is also changing the way that we get access to education in finance. People are much more aware of what their options are, and I can only hope that people who are, I don't know, in their teens now or maybe in their 20s, that they're infinitely better sort of employed with tools to take better decisions regarding their money, ergo regarding their life.
All right, when I think of Bitcoin and the future, I'm not excited about it as a means of payment, but what's exciting is all the innovation in the terms of politics or in the terms of, I don't know, new methods of philosophy even, because people are trying to grasp what is it exactly? Is it a corporation? Is it a commodity? Is it a method of payment? That's quite amazing what's happening over there. There is also innovation in the way companies are being run. If you think about times before Bitcoin, if you wanted to launch a company and say, all right, I want to give everyone here shares in my company, it would kill you in terms of logistics. It would be impossible to do that. Right now, thanks to Bitcoin, thanks to Ethereum, thanks to smart contract, I can totally do that. I can think of a new company structure and implement it. It's a matter of programming, really. All right, there is a layer of like connection with the real world somewhere there, but the essence, the contract behind the company, there can be a huge innovation over there, and that's what I'm excited about. And that's where the cool thing is. And just one more thing is, there is this whole concept of smart contracts, the deals that are put on the blockchain. And the cool thing about smart contracts is, in the past, if you wanted to launch a company that would manage other people's money, I don't know, make an escrow company or a futures trading company or an exchange or whatever, if you dealt with people's money, there was so much paperwork to be done because security was very, very difficult to achieve. And people had to know that, all right, you are trustworthy, there is a huge pile of money behind you and you will not run away with it. And that was a deal breaker. Many startups couldn't launch even if the idea was good. Now, what's happening with smart contracts right now is that even a student that half drunken student can write a piece of code that will manage huge amounts of money. And as long as the code works well, it doesn't matter how big the company is behind it because it's secure. And that's quite amazing, that anyone can write a piece of code that will manage people's money, and you don't have to verify the authority, the trust behind the person. You just have to verify the code and see whether the code works or not. And that's another game changer for me.
Awesome. So we have still 1 minute left. Do we have any questions?
Hello. I would like to ask about your intuition towards the subject of integration of the financial services with other services we were using, because I still have a feeling that even if we have these new tools, finances and banking are still a separate niche in our lives. It doesn't integrate it doesn't help us really to manage our lives, our families and spendings. And what's the future of this subject?
Okay, yeah, I'm sitting in the middle and integrating. I think it's a very fair point. I think this is the question that we're all asking ourselves. Why isn't there this one place where I can go and with one tap open a portfolio of, I actually don't care, companies, products, from a customer's perspective, it really shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's my bank, if it's Azomo, if it's any other company, but there are certain needs that I have that I want my bank to fulfill. I mean, here I am probably looking at the challenger banks in a way that what they're trying to do is, think about the definition of a bank and see what is it that the customer needs and how can they push forward. I think that we can look at anything from the new ways of doing banking that would recommend to use a certain startup or recommend to save in a certain way because they're really data driven, and this is the thing that, let's face it, banks are not. So if you can build a bank with data and the customer in mind, then you should be able to look at the data and from that data trigger certain suggestions to the customer as to what they should be doing, rather than sending them stupid letters every week, please transfer your balance from one credit card to another, even though I know that you don't need that. So I think this is one way. The other one that I'd be looking at is, and there are already a few players who are trying to achieve that, essentially aggregators of, a B2B, sort of C2B platform where a customer goes through one platform to a portfolio of services that they could be using. There's one registration, because the other thing is nobody wants to register with 7 different entities at once. So there's one registration, they hold your data, they give you one view, one panel of where your money is, how much you have it, and with which products, and then through them you can initiate transactions with whoever they choose to integrate with. So I just spoke a couple of weeks ago with a guy in the UK who's trying to do that. They're called Bud. I know there's a lady in the audience who's also trying to do that, and I can't remember her name nor the name of the company, but she's looking down now, and I don't know how to get her attention. That's her. That's her. I'm talking about you. There are companies out there who are trying to aggregate information from all these different providers and become a single point of reference for the customer. And can you remind us the name of your company, because I've forgotten? Exchanger. Okay, there you go. So there are already guys who are looking at this. How can I be the one person that the customer comes to, registers, and I manage access to different partners that I choose to work with that give me and then I am very data driven. I look at who's giving us the best deals. We need more integration in the fintech sector as well. I think that goes without saying. And I think that this is going to come with the fact that Now all of us are making our money or our success off the back of the early adopters. When we reach the point of scale, and I think we're sort of hopefully closely approaching that, this is going to enable guys like this lady in the corner or the challenger banks to go to the wider audience with a silver bullet, one size fits all solution, log in here, and these are the guys that we think you should be dealing with your money with.
Great. So thank you very much for taking part in the panel. Thank you.